Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Our current session focuses on language teaching and theoretical concepts about language. I hope and expect by the end of this session, you would be able to understand the relationship between language teaching and various theoretical concepts. Well, my dear students, at the very outset of the session, I would like to point out two important questions. One, what do theories of language do? Number two, what purpose do they serve? So if we find answers to these questions, I think it would be easy to relate them to language teaching. Well, when it comes to question number one, what do theories of language do? Actually, theories of language are kind of collection of ideas or beliefs or concepts about what language is. They provide us a certain perspective on language. And what is the purpose that they serve? When once we attain or once we take a perspective, a certain perspective on language from a theoretical standpoint, then these theories serve the purpose of looking at language use, language learning, and language teaching from that standpoint. There is another question. How do theories of language relate to theories of language teaching, or how do they relate to language teaching itself? Well, because language teaching is quite complex, unlike many other subjects that are taught in the formal educational systems. If you try to think of some examples of that, you would be able to understand that teaching of language is not a simple process or a simple phenomenon. It involves teaching of various skills of language. It involves teaching of structures of language. It involves teaching of the system of language. It involves enabling the learners to use language as a discourse. It involves being capable of using language in a particular social context, in a particular setting. It also involves learning how to make suitable choices at the semantic, syntactic, pragmatic levels, etc. So, when language teaching in itself is something very complex, of course, then we need to know what is the perspective that a teacher needs to take on teaching language. And these theories of language, because they provide a perspective on language itself, they provide a perspective on the teaching method of for a language teacher. So this is the important aspect of the relationship of language teaching and of language theories. Well, my dear students, history of language teaching and the history of the study of language actually go side by side. And the study of language addresses the teaching of language. In fact, this is the summing up remark that we can give about that the study of language addresses the teaching of language. If we know what is language, only then we can teach, we can know how to teach that language. These, the theoretical perspectives help to take a standpoint, and this perspective addresses the practices of teaching. I would just give you examples of when you believe in, for example, language as a system. Well, grammar translation method can be a way of teaching of language where, one system of language, for example, Latin language, would be compared and contrasted with another system of teaching of English in the classroom, and thus the rules through the similarities and dissimilarities would be taught.